Let's begin with some big breaking news coming in at this minute. US President Donald Trump says he may meet with Iran if the Islamic Republic wants to do that. Trump said he may meet if Iran wants to meet, indicating openness to dialogue, but emphasizing that the initiative must come from Tehran first. This is what he actually said a few minutes past. He was at the Oval meeting with the soccer team, and this is what he says about the ongoing issue between Iran and Israel. He says Iran can't have a nuclear bomb at any cost. I think Iran was a few weeks away from having a nuclear bomb and weapon. I have discussed Iran with Pakistani army chief. The meeting lasted for an hour on Israel and Iran with the army chief. He says that he hasn't made a decision on acting against Fordo nuclear facility in Iran. Trump also said Iran wants to meet and may do that. A deal could still happen. This is what the United States president says. Let's just listen in to what the president had to say. But before we do that, Susan Tehran is our correspondent. She's now joining us on the phone from New York. Susan, a lot has changed within the past hour. The president said that he may or may not get into this war, but now he says that Iran is open to talks.
That he's saying that at this point he may be able to have some kind of talk with them. I would not read really too much into what Donald Trump is right now relaying to the world. I think we're very clear on where he stands right now, and it's that main decision making that he has to ultimately make after discussing it with his cabinet on whether or not, even if it's some sort of targeted attack, he's willing to go in and do that against Iran. I think every other thing he says at this point, going back and forth, is just talk to sort of dissuade maybe the intelligence that they have or the media to make any conclusions, or to Iran to make any conclusions. But yes, you're absolutely right, Eric. The last time we talked, it appeared that no negotiation under any circumstance would be on the table with Iran when he was doing that flag rising ceremony. But now it appears in the Oval Office he's saying that, there may be some kind of opening. I do want to say that they are expected to have a meeting about Iran and Israel shortly from now. So I think it'll be very important to see what happens after that as well.
Susan, what are Americans and especially Republicans saying about Trump's mixed signal? Because he says he wants to do this. He also posts on Truth Social, saying different stuff about what is happening in Iran and Israel. What are Republicans and especially his camp saying about his narratives?
Yeah, that's a very valid question to ask at this point, because there's definitely a division on how to move forward regarding Iran's nuclear program. If everyone agrees on one thing, Democrats, Republicans, his own camp, even independents, is, according to the latest polls, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. No one wants that. How to get to that is where sort of the debate starts to arise. And the most important thing right now is he has a camp that ideologically is very isolationist. And then he also has those Republicans who, in the old days, we would call neocon warmongers, for example, the Lindsey Grahams of the Republican Party that just advocate for bombing and bombing and bombing. But the majority of the American people, Republicans included, they just do not want boots on the ground. They don't want military action on the part of the United States. They're open to supporting Israel, but they don't want boots on the ground in any way, and definitely not a prolonged war.
Right, Susan. Susan Tehrani is our correspondent in New York. This is what Donald Trump said at the Oval.
Well, I don't want to get involved either, but I've been saying for 20 years, maybe longer, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've been saying it for a long time. And I think they were a few weeks away from having one. and they had to sign a document. I think they wish they signed it now. It was a fair deal. And now it's a harder thing to sign, you know. It's a lot of water over the dam. But, you know, it's very, I say it very simply, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Too much devastation. And they'd use it, you know, I believe they'd use it. Others won't use it, but I believe they'd use it. So that's it, it's very simple as far as I'm concerned. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
All right, so that is what the president said at the Oval, and we do understand that there will be a meeting in the next 1 hour to discuss the Iran or the situation in Iran and Israel, and this will be held by the president's cabinet, so we'll be waiting for that to happen. But this is what the president has reiterated, that Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb at any cost, and I think Iran was a few weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. He also says that he hasn't made a decision on acting against Fordo, and he actually says that Iran wants to meet and may do that. A deal could still happen. This is according to the president. Let's talk to Mr. Giorgio Cafiero. He's a professor at the Georgetown University and also the CEO of Gulf State Analytics. Mr. Cafiero is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Cafiero, welcome to the program. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres says he remains profoundly alarmed by the ongoing military escalation in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. He has called for de-escalation, and this call for de-escalation is continuously falling on deaf ears, both for Israel and Iran, and now the United States. But to what end, Mr. Cafiero?
Well, I think there are many important actors in the international community who completely agree with the UN Secretary General. We see many heads of state of important countries, whether we're talking about Russia, Turkey, China, so on and so forth, who are insisting that the international community take action to de-escalate this rapidly escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. Many countries all over the world have huge concerns about the potential for this war, which is not even a week old right now, to further regionalize and further internationalize. We can get into really what's at stake for different countries, but again, so much of the world very concerned right now. The issue, though, is as long as Israel is getting this type of support from the United States, Israel can basically proceed with its aggression toward Iran. And I think what really matters is whether or not the Trump administration chooses to push for de-escalation and to rein in Israel and to pressure Israel to take a step back, or whether or not the U.S. is going to get directly involved in the war, which promises to exacerbate the tensions and the hostilities to a whole new level. So yeah, I think it really kind of comes down to what the Trump administration wants to do and what Israel is doing. Calls from the UN for de-escalation, that's not going to really result in any tangible action, unfortunately.
Mr. Cafiero, Israel ignited the flames, but it's now U.S. and Iran embroiled in a tit-for-tat. Israel now insists it wants the United States to join the war. Was that the objective all along? And if America does indeed get in this war militarily, how does that change the dynamics of this conflict and the region?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear that for many years, Netanyahu has been trying to pull the United States into a war with Iran. I think it's very clear at this point in the conflict that Israel has failed to deliver a decisive blow to Iran. Yes, the Israelis have waged a tremendous amount of destruction in Iran, but the Iranians have, proven that they've been able to absorb these attacks and continue to wage very effective counterattacks against Israel. And I think what Netanyahu really wants is for the U.S. military to get directly involved and to help Israel essentially disintegrate the Iranian state. And that seems to be the real objective that Netanyahu's government has. There's all this talk about the alleged nuclear threat, but what Israel is really trying to do is disintegrate the Iranian state. Now, in the event that Trump chooses to bring the United States into this conflict in that way, to basically make U.S. involvement much deeper, much more confrontational toward Iran, then we need to consider what the consequences could be for the region. The Iranians threaten to attack any country in the neighborhood that, allows the United States to use bases on its own soil or to use its airspace for military operations against Iran. So if that scenario unfolds, we could see this warfare spilling into other countries in the neighborhood, and that will have, it's difficult to exaggerate how destabilizing that will be for the Middle East and by extension, the rest of the world. If we're talking about Iran retaliating against GCC states, the stakes are very, very high for countries worldwide, given the importance of the Gulf region to the global economy.
Mr. Cafiero, very quickly, we're out of time, but so what happens next? What are your predictions of this war? Will it go on or will it stop? And who will make it stop?
Well, I've learned that it's always best to be humble, and that trying to predict an unpredictable leader like Trump, who's all over the map, is never a wise thing to do. I'll be very frank. I don't know what Trump's going to do next. I don't think anyone other than Donald Trump does. But what I can say, though, is that if Donald Trump is going to decide to bring the U.S. into this war more directly and to have the U.S. military start operations against Iran, he is going to pay a price politically here in the United States, because his movement, the MAGA movement that went to bat for him last year, they didn't vote for him because they wanted him to start new wars in the Middle East or get pulled into new wars in the Middle East. His message about being a president for peace and avoiding costly quagmires and military entanglements in the region sat very well with many in the American electorate who have no appetite for a continuation of U.S. wars and occupations in the Middle East. So he will pay a big price at home from a political standpoint, and I certainly hope that's something he keeps in mind before he makes this very, very high-stakes decision.
Mr. Cafiero, good to see you. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to WION World is One today.
Good to be with you. Thank you.